Hi everyone, I'm Maggie Shane. Welcome to the Coffee House Blog. Today we're discussing the birth and rebirth of the Brands of Texas. The Brands are my most popular series by far, and I thought you might like to know a little bit about their evolution. Here's how it started. Okay, I'll write just one Western romance. Here's how it's going. I just started my 25th Western romance. So here's how all that began, how it spawned, and how it's still going. These are the 9 books of the Texas Brand series. Each book in this series is a complete romance with a satisfying conclusion. I know a lot of series today, the popular thing to do is to keep the same couple not together or entirely together until the end of the series. That's not how this works. In these books, each book features a different couple. While the books within each series are best read in order, you do not have to read the series themselves in order. They are contained, so there are connections between them, so you might want to read them in chronological order, and if you do, then this post gives them in that order. But really, each series is self-contained. You can enjoy it thoroughly without having read the other series. I think maybe the other series will enhance your pleasure. So here's how it started. I was already had a little career going. I'd published a handful of paranormals and a couple of romantic suspense novels. That was when my smart and savvy first editor in the biz, Melissa Sennett, said to me, "You should write a Western." And I said, "That's not what I write." And she said, "But you could." And I said, "But I won't." And then she said, "Everybody knows you can write paranormal. You've proven yourself in romantic suspense. But Westerns are the hottest sellers we have, and I think you should try one. It'll expose you to a whole new group of readers, and they'll cross over and try the paranormals and the suspense and the things you like writing best. It'll boost your career as a bonus." And then I replied, "Okay, I'll write a Western, but just one." And I meant it. Here's what happened. I began doing research. Not on ranching or Texas or anything logical like that. That stuff could wait. Besides, I lived on a farm and my neighbors raised beef cattle, so how different could it be? A lot, as it turns out. But what I needed research on first and foremost was the feeling of these Western romances, the kind of spiritual essence of them. So I did 2 things. I binge read Louis L'Amour novels, especially the Sackett family novels, and I turned on a TV series called In the Heat of the Night. Now, I know that technically In the Heat of the Night is not a Western. It's a Southern story. It's set in Sparta, Mississippi. I realized that straight off. But by that point, I had already seen Bubba Skinner. Captain Skinner, played by Alan Autry, was a lawman, a big, gentle, handsome, awkward with women lawman. That combination melted my heart into a little mushy puddle. From the first time I noticed him, Bubba Skinner, I knew that some of his traits were definitely going to be included in the creation of my first Western hero, and only Western hero. I meant it. While I was reading the Louis L'Amour books, the Sackett stories especially struck me. The Sacketts were this huge family in the Old West, and they were spread far and wide. I remember Louis making up branches of the family and naming them for where they came from. The Clinch Mountain Sacketts is one name that sticks in my mind, but there were other geographically named Sackett clans. The Sacketts were so loyal to one another, above all else, that when one Sackett got into trouble, other Sacketts would just come out of the woodwork from far and wide to help. I loved that aspect of those stories. This was kind of the underlying theme of the Sackett books. It was family loyalty, the blood bond, I've never seen it done as well as Louis L'Amour did it. What a writer he was. I also loved that there were so many of them. And no matter what, they'd come together when trouble was afoot. That just struck me so powerfully that I realized I wasn't going to be able to write just one Western. To get that kind of dynamic in, I was going to need multiple family members to capture that big, broad, expansive family vibe. So those were the two main inputs into the beginning of the brands. I wanted to create a big family that was super close and loyal, with powerful good guy ethics. And I wanted the head of that family to be a big, bashful, hot, but doesn't know it Bubba Skinner type lawman. Enter Garrett Brand, a big cowboy and sheriff of Quinn County, Texas. He lived on his family's cattle ranch near the town of Quinn, for which the county is named, the Texas Brand. Being the oldest, he had single-handedly raised his 5 teenage siblings after their parents, Orrin and Maria Brand, were killed in a car wreck. And he kept their ranch going too. All young adults now, as book 1 opens, they still live together in the ranch house when they find a baby on their doorstep. Garrett immediately demands to know which of his younger brothers is responsible. But baby sister Jessie says the note's addressed to him. And when the baby's beautiful, heartbroken Aunt Chelsea shows up, saying her sister was murdered and the baby stolen, well, Garrett can't do much besides take them both in and try to help. That's what he does. That's what the Brands do. So began the series with The Littlest Cowboy, Book 1. Second oldest was Ben, still grieving his late wife Penny. Then he starts seeing her, once near her grave and again outside his bedroom window, gazing up at the ranch house. He wonders if the grief is driving him insane in Long Gone Lonesome Blues, Book 4. Next in line is Wes, the brother by another mother. Their dad had an affair with a native woman who passed away when Wes was still a baby, so their father brought him home. Trying to get in touch with his native roots, he winds up opposing the gorgeous Navajo archaeologist Taylor, who wants to excavate local sites in Badlands Bad Boy, Book 3. Adam, the next youngest, I'm going oldest to youngest, Adam is the black sheep of the family. He was left at the altar by the woman he adored. He left town to lick his wounds and avoid having to see Kirsten with the rich old man she married instead of him. But now that rich old man is dead, and it looks like Kirsten did it in Lone Star Lonely, Book 6. Elliot is the youngest male, an aspiring rodeo star with a side-splitting sense of humor. A knock on the head sends him into hallucinations of the past, where he meets his family's bad guy ancestors and saves a beautiful Mexican they were trying to hang. When he wakes up from the delusion, Esmeralda is still with him in The Outlaw Bride, Book 7. And Jessie is the baby sister, chafing under the watchful eyes of her big brothers while lusting after ranch foreman Lash. Lash has no interest in having his ass kicked by the Brand men, but Jessie isn't taking no for an answer in The Baddest Virgin in Texas, Book 2. As soon as I created all those characters for the first book, I knew there were going to be at least 6 books in the series. What I didn't know was that I'd scare up a handful of long-lost relatives who show up in books 5, 8, and 9, The Lone Cowboy, Texas Angel, and Texas Homecoming. Now we move on to the next chronological series, the Oklahoma Brands. One day, when I was writing a scene in one of the Texas Brand books, I don't remember which book, Wes Brand was speaking, and out pops this line: "You think we're bad? Just wait till you meet the rowdy Oklahoma branch of the family." I remember stopping after I typed the line, looking at it and saying, what the hell is that about? I had no idea. But I'd been at this gig long enough to know better than to question the muse. Nope, no question. If she gives me a line, I use it. It would all become clear in time, or if it doesn't, then it's just a throwaway line that doesn't have to ever mean anything. But it was there, and I kept it there. It had to have been 3 or 4 books later, as I was wrapping up the Texas Brand series, knowing I wanted to write more books in this universe, when that line floated back into my mind, and I decided it was time to go to Oklahoma. I called the spin-off series the Oklahoma All-Girl Brands because it was about 5 daughters of the notorious widow Vidalia Brand. The notion there was a play on the words all-girl band, which was a common enough phrase once, but it turns out not too many people are familiar with it these days, so the play on words was lost. We dropped the all-girl part and simplified it to the Oklahoma Brands. Vidalia was married to Orrin Brand's brother, John. Orrin was the late father of the Texas Brand crew. But John was not a good or honorable man like Orrin was. He already had a wife and kids when he married Vidalia. What he didn't have was a divorce. So all 5 Brand girls are illegitimate, and their mother owns a saloon, so they just have a great reputation in small-town Oklahoma. I intended this to be a 5-book series, one for each of the daughters. Maya, the good girl who gets pregnant her first time by a drifter who didn't leave his real name. In The Brands Who Came for Christmas, that's book 1. Edie, the lingerie model, home to evade a stalker, and the bad boy mechanic she's been crushing on since high school, in Brand New Heartache, that's 2. Mel is the badass sister who has to impersonate a princess who's missing in order to help a sexy PI who knows way too much about her, in book 3, Secrets and Lies. Kara, who thinks she's a jinx, and the high school hunk who comes to town seeking a mom for his little boy in A Mommy for Christmas. And Celine, who's been practicing witchcraft in secret and was holding her ceremonial dagger when a man stumbled out of the woods and fell at her feet with a knife wound in his chest in One Magic Summer, book 5. Later, I realized that the mom of the 5 sisters really did need a story of her own, and it turned out there was a whole lot about Vidalia's past that she hadn't told her daughters or me. And when that secret past walks into her bar looking like a lonely woman's dream, she knows the past is back to stay. Now, in Vidalia's story, the hero is Robert Bobby Joe McIntyre. And as their story unfolded, his 3 gorgeous adult sons showed up. They were so amazing that I decided to keep them. And I spun off yet another series, The McIntyre Men. Having given stories to all Vidalia's daughters, I now turned my attention to Bobby Joe's sons. This time, I started out with just 3 main characters. So one would think a trilogy, right? Wrong. There are 6 books in this series. I started the first book with an extra character right away, in a short Christmas novel to kick off the new series. Cousin Sophie was a doctor in crisis, never expecting to find love with wounded vet Daryl, whom she meets one night while tending bar for her cousins in Oklahoma Christmas Blues, and that's book 1. Robert McIntyre falls for a con artist who thinks she's fooling him, and he goes along willingly, hoping he can convince her to change her bad girl ways and settle down in Oklahoma Moonshine. That's book 2. And his best friend Dax winds up entangled with Kylie's twin sister Kelly, who's supposed to be dead, in Shine On, Oklahoma, book 4. Joey, the youngest McIntyre man, never knew that his summer romance had resulted in a little girl until a rare illness threatens her life. In Oklahoma Starshine, book 3. A Christmas miracle story that'll have you sobbing in the very best way. Jason, the nice guy who's been making swords on the side, learns that his sweet girlfriend Sunny has a dark secret past just before it turns up in town in Oklahoma Sunshine, book 6. Within this series is buried another, a tale of brand neighbors and dear friends, the Wakelands, a military family who will have 3 books in this series. The first of these is Allie's story, Baby by Christmas, book 5, in which a lonely soldier comes home with his CO for the holidays to a surprise. His pre-deployment one-night stand was his commanding officer's baby sister, and she's due to give birth to his child at any moment. 2 Wakeland sequels are in progress. These are written with a co-writer who doesn't do this full-time like I do, so it's a longer process, but it is happening. Finally, we arrive at the latest series, the Texas brand Generations. Just last year, a bunch of new characters started talking in my head, dragging me back to Texas. Well, it turned out the babies born to the Texas brands were all grown up and wanted books of their own. In the first, Jesse and Lash's daughter, Maria Michelle, ditches her wedding and hops a ride with a handsome nerd of a stranger in Harrison Hyde and the Runaway Bride. In the second, Honky Tonk Cowboy, the baby on the doorstep from the very first book, Ethan Bubba Brand, must finally find a way to fit in with his adopted family while trying not to ruin it all. But Lily Hyde, his cousin's brand new sister-in-law, has it in her head that they belong together, and she's danged if she's going to let him say no. And that's Honky Tonk Cowboy Book 2. And in Book 3, Deputy Brand gets her man. Rookie deputy and aspiring future sheriff Willow Brand, daughter of Wes and Taylor, can't seem to stay away from the ex-con her cousins dragged home. A crook raised by crooks, Jeremiah doesn't trust anyone, especially the law. Book 4 has no title yet, at least not one I can tell you about, because if I tell you anything about this one that I'm writing right now, it might ruin the surprise ending of Deputy Brand Gets Her Man. So get that one read, because once I finish writing this, I'm going to have to spill the beans. And as soon as you see the cover, you're going to be all, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. I know you are. And the cover art forms have been submitted, so that cover reveal shouldn't be too terribly long. Now, I have 8 books planned for this final brand series. I should never say final with this one, should I? I have 8 books planned for this Texas brand series, and I am writing number 4, so I'm almost halfway done. To sum it up, my just one Western has become 24 small-town Western romances. When complete, there will be 29, assuming no unattached relatives show up. The books rock the rom-com, and a lot of them have suspensey subplots. They run about the length of the category romances I used to write for Harlequin and Silhouette. In fact, the first series was originally published by Silhouette Intimate Moments. There's intimacy, but not erotica. These are about the storytelling. And 2, they're about the power of love and the power of family and home. So that's the tale of the brands, past, present, and future. Round up a few and let me know what you think. Just pick a series and dive in. Again, the series do not have to be read in order, but the books within each series should be. See you next week.